Record. Thank you. Well, I want to welcome everybody to the first webinar of our fall semester of this academic year. So as Jean said, Happy New Year. So I just have a couple quick announcements, and then I am going to introduce our speaker tonight, who is one of our amazing librarians who we are very lucky to have. So first, I just want to, again, welcome everybody. This is a monthly webinar that we have that focuses on different aspects of public health preparedness. We bring in, except for tonight, which is a special topic, but we typically bring in a practitioner in the public health preparedness field and kind of highlight the different things that are being done in the field, different potential career pathways that people can explore, and just kind of a good overall all-encompassing look at what's happening. We always do this on the first Wednesday of the month during the academic year. So obviously it's September, we're here now. Next month, we're going to have Bill Dunn, who is logged in. He's one of our public health science professors who's going to be speaking. On November 2nd, we're going to have JD, who is one of our students. He's going to be talking about his Capstone project. And then that's November 2nd. And then December 7th, we have somebody who's coming from the Washington, D.C. Department of Homeland Security and Homeland Security and Emergency Management Agency. I saw her speak at a conference and she was amazing. So I reached out to her and she's very excited to come speak. So as I know I say this every month, but we've got a great lineup of speakers. I'm really excited to hear them speak and to talk about all the great stuff that they're doing. Other than that, for people who are new to our program, to our webinars, we have two dedicated LinkedIn, well, I guess 3 dedicated LinkedIn groups that we encourage you to join. We have a public health preparedness one, where we post interesting job opportunities, conferences, networking things, so anything like that. We have one for public health preparedness, one for our student chapter of the International Association for Emergency Managers, which I will come back to in 1 second. And then there is also a large LinkedIn group for the Master of Professional Studies in Homeland Security group. So if you are on LinkedIn, those are 3 groups that you should definitely check out and join because there is a lot of great information there. IAEM, we have a lot of students who are interested in emergency management, and we have started a student chapter of IAEM. We are trying to become official. We just don't have the full number of students yet to be IAEM official, but as far as we're concerned, we are still, we still have an interesting agenda so every 3rd Tuesday of the month at 7:30? At 7:30. 7 your time. 8 Eastern time. I keep forgetting.
That's correct.
At 8 Eastern time, we have a chapter meeting, and the IAEM group is it's kind of a multifaceted, multi-goal group. We have speakers who come in who talk about emergency management. They give career advice, networking advice. We also talk about the process to become either a certified emergency manager or an AEM, an associate, thank you, emergency manager. We have a lot of people that are going for those certifications. So it's a way to kind of, stay up to date, kind of talk about what's working as far as the processes go. I just posted something on LinkedIn that the exam is changing. So we were going to do like exam study groups. So it's a really interesting meeting. And if you are interested in emergency management, I would definitely recommend that you check it out. And I feel like I just stole all of JD's thunder. So if you have anything to add,
yeah, on this September 20th, we are going to be talking with Scott Michelonis, who's the Director in System Emergency Management and Business Continuity at Penn State Health. So that should be a fascinating discussion. October, we're still finalizing. We have someone, but we need confirmation. November, our November meeting will actually happen during the IAEM annual conference, which I will be attending. So barring any events that night that I have to attend, I will be giving a state of the conference from the conference that night. So and if I cannot make the meeting that night, then Samantha Berman will be hosting a CEM and AEM study group. So join us for that. That's all I have for tonight. Thank you.
If you have any questions about our webinar, our IAEM group, or anything like that, sorry about that. You can always feel free to send me an email. JD is kind of our student point or our student point person, point student for IAEM, but you can always get information, reach out to me, reach out on LinkedIn, and we will get you to the right place. And JD just put the IAEM site in the chat. Two quick last things before I turn it over to Andrew. One is these webinars are all recorded and they are kept on Tulipol. Can you post the site in the chat? They are all available for you to review. We've got a number of great speakers. We have been very, very fortunate. So you can look back at them, use them as sources. You can use them, you know, just for your own interest. We've got tonight's is going to be all about the library, which is a great one to keep as a reference. So if you you always have access to these recordings. And last announcement before I turn it over is last year we started a thanks JD. Last year we started a school store through TD Mills. So if you are interested in getting yourself some public health preparedness apparel, bags, blankets, hats, anything like that, I will be sending the link out soon. It does take a little while to get to you because the store will be open for a set period of time, and then after it closes, then they'll start the production and ship it to you. We'll send out a link, you go online, you pay TD Mills directly, they ship it right to you. So no logistical things to worry about, but we've gotten some pretty great stuff. JD is actually modeling something for us right now. I was going to grab my shirt today and I had a meeting before, so I wasn't able to wear a t-shirt, but so that's my last announcement. That's always an exciting thing to do. We try to do it twice a year, once in the beginning for any new students, and then we do it right before graduation for anybody who is graduating and will be leaving. So on that note, Andrew is one of our Penn State librarians, and he is going to speak to us tonight about public health and Homeland Security resources, how to best use the library, and things like that. So again, Andrew, thank you so much for taking your Wednesday evening and coming and speaking with us, but we really do appreciate your time.
Thank you, Jennifer. Not a problem at all. I'm happy to be here. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to Penn State. I'm going to start with the library's website and show you all some interesting resources that we can bookmark, drop into the chat. So everybody see the library's website. That's affirmative there.
Yep, we can see.
The libraries.psu.edu. That's the University Library's common gateway to pretty much everything we have access to. Penn State University Libraries, we're a top 10 research library in North America. We are well resourced, and there's a lot of great information at the intersection of Homeland Security and public health preparedness. In addition to that, I have a public health preparedness guide that I've created that's a few years old, and then there's a Homeland Security guide that I maintain with a librarian out of Harrisburg that has a lot of other great information that's both proprietary to the university libraries in that we license it and pay for it, but then also lots of resources above and beyond. My title at Penn State is the subject specialist for public or political science, policy studies, and government information. So I've collected a lot of great government resources for public health preparedness and included them on the guide, as well as some great literature resources that I'll show you in just a moment. So the libraries, back to the library's website, I'm going to talk about some services that would be important for everyone to understand before we get into resources. So the services tab up here in the blue button, I'm going to click on that. And if you, the very first service, to borrow and renew materials, there is a section for World Campus and distance researchers that actually explains how you can get material get material sent to you from our libraries. So you could bookmark this site. I'm not sure if we can we get this into the chat? Get this link into the chat?
Sure. Do you want to put it in there?
I can. Yep, that's easy enough for me right there. So there's a few important links that I wanted to put into the chat. So so you want to come back to this if you find something in the catalog that you actually want that's physically here, we can send it to you. So.
Not to interrupt you, Andrew, but just I'm going to keep the chat up and I'll be monitoring it and also the participant list. So if you have a question for Andrew or for me, either type it in the chat or raise your hand and we will make sure we get your question answered.
Yeah, and please feel free to ask questions as we go. If there's something on your mind, that's not a problem at all. So related to services, course reserves, you might intersect with course reserves depending on if your instructor is using course reserves, but then most importantly, interlibrary loan. If I click on this tab, we use the ILLiad service. If you haven't already, you want to create an ILLiad account. When you create an ILLiad account and you're authenticated into Penn State system, when you're using a database and it recognizes that we don't have full access to an article, if you have an ILLiad account and authenticated into Penn State, it will seamlessly integrate that information into a form and you'll be able to submit it. And even though we don't have full access to it immediately, within a few days, you'll get the PDF. And I think I'm going to probably show how that works near the end of this session. So, so if you haven't done that, go ahead, come back to here and create a ILLiad account. And I'll drop this into the chat as well. Okay, so moving away from services, I'm going to come back to the library's main page and talk about our research resources. We have, and they're structured, they're duplicated on this page. You can click on this databases tab and look at our databases A to Z list. We have over 700 different databases on that A to Z list. That's overwhelming to me. There's a tremendous amount of information. I would encourage everyone to explore those databases, but I'm going to show you some guides today that has the collection of the most important databases for you, related to this particular program. So down here, again, that's the same, the databases A to Z list, but subject guides and course guides. I'm going to click on this subject guides link, and under social science and law, there is a public health preparedness guide. And I'll drop this into the chat. And the public health preparedness guide, this is something I created a few years ago, specifically for students in this tract. It is by no means exhaustive, but it is a great resource to get started. I've also included on this main page some information, some actually great open source books in our catalog on both technical writing and academic writing at the bottom of this page. So I would encourage everybody to dive into those. There's some great resources. That's not an exhaustive list there. I picked the best 3 from, on technical writing and academic writing. There's lots out there on, lots of information out on the open web on the differences between those two. But I thought I would include these excellent text resources for everyone to kind of have quick access to on the main page of this guide.
As Andrew mentioned, this is not an exhaustive list, and he's been working with us in order to make this as user-friendly and as comprehensive as we feel would be helpful. So if you're working through a project and there's something that you think would be really helpful to have and you would like to see added, let me know. I can work with Andrew and I can make sure that that these are in there. This is a living document, so if there's something that we're missing, please let us know and we will make sure it gets on there.
Thank you, Jennifer. That's thank you for mentioning that, because I know I remember mentioning that the last time that I showed this guide to a cohort. Some of you are experts in very specific things, and I would welcome any and all information to make this guide better. My contact information, the nice thing about subject guides, you're going to find a subject expert attached to that guide. In this case, I created this guide, so I'm the contact information. You can email me here. You can also schedule an appointment with me from the guide. So that's available at any time. These books that I've included, these are all resources these are all ebooks. So if I click on one of these, it's going to take me to the catalog record in our local library catalog. And then if I click on this open textbook library, it's going to take me to this open, this is an open textbook. So this is available. You can download this. This can be, you can have this bookmarked. It's instantly available for you to use at any time from this guide. And all of these books are ebooks, so they're instantly available. Some of them you may need to be authenticated through Penn State system, but I know a few of them are open source. So all of our guides at the university libraries have tabs on the left and then different content on the right. So when I click on this books tab, this is, again, just some selected books on public health preparedness and emergency management from our catalog. What I want to do here is show you our library catalog. So I'm going to click on that link. And this is, basically here we're into the library catalog. So I'm going to do a search for preparedness and biological threats. I'm going to put that in quotes. I'm looking for the phrase biological threats. It's a fairly narrow search for our catalog. I want to just talk about some of the things that you'll find when you're searching our catalog. Lots of government documents. This first record is certainly a Senate hearing before Bioterrorism Public Health Preparedness Subcommittee. Sometimes you'll see duplicated records in our catalog. So you see a microfiche holding for this. Here's the electronic version of this. And we might have it electronic version more than once. So this is all the same hearing from May 11th, 2005. Here's another hearing from 2008. That hearing happens to be in print in the library, but probably available electronically in Record 5, you see. In some cases, you'll see lots of duplication in our catalog, and in some cases you won't. Oftentimes, if we're dealing with government hearings, you will see them duplicated because we might have them in two different collections, and that's the case here. As we move down through this, we get into a more traditional text, academic text, the molecularization of security, medical countermeasures, stockpiling, and the governance of biological threats, Rutledge 2022. So this is a brand new ebook. And again, these links will only work if you're authenticated into the library system. So if I click on that, and that takes me to the ebook. So I'll go back to the catalog. A citizen's guide to preparedness from 2004, kind of a snapshot in history from FEMA Citizen Corps, congressional report from 1997. I just want to show some others. again, this is just a sample search in the catalog, but just looking at the types of things you'll see, lots of government documents, food biosecurity, a Springer imprint on food biosecurity, excellent resource there if you're going to narrow your focus. Urban emergency management, planning and response in the 21st century. So again, this was a very specific search for preparedness and biological threats. But if we looked at emergency management more broadly in our catalog, we would see a lot more. Here's a text on public health ethics. A lot of information in this realm is going to be electronically available by the nature of it's newer content, and a lot of what we're buying in this arena is going to be available electronically. So that's the kind of the basics of the library catalog. I'm going to come back out to, okay, so I'm going to go back to the guide here. There's a database called WorldCat, which is a database of libraries worldwide. If you were looking for something that we didn't have, or looking for some report, WorldCat might be a resource that you would use. I'm not going to show you that this evening, but you can kind of come back to that if you like. The databases tab on the guide. Again, this is not an exhaustive database list. This is just some selected databases. Some of you might be familiar with PubMed. CAB Abstracts, which is Ag, Nutrition, and Global Health. I have Google Scholar listed here. Google Scholar is a tool that I use in conjunction with all kinds of other library resources, Toxicology Abstracts, ToxLine, and then I have a link to all of our databases, A to Z. I just actually noticed today that the disaster lit database, I think PubMed sunsetted and integrated into some of their other resources. And I fixed a bunch of links on this guide, but I don't think I fixed this disaster lit link. So I apologize for that bad link on my guide. I don't know if anyone else knew the disaster lit database had been sunsetted or not, but that's kind of a bummer. But apparently everything is folded in. So, and then I have some newspaper databases down here, Nexus Uni, Factiva, and then there's another resource called Access World News from the databases A to Z list. Just to go into PubMed, I'm not going to do an exhaustive search or tutorial on PubMed, but as we go in, you can see some history history of some searches that I've done. So I'm just I'll pick this one, and that's actually a nice feature that I've not noticed before. But I did a search for polio and preparedness. And if I go ahead and look at these results, so this would be akin to just in the basic search doing polio and preparedness, but it remembered my search, which is kind of a nice feature. And we can see the results. A lot of these are going to be integrated into our system and be available instantly. So a number of different. So let's just take a look at one of these, and I'll go through that. So it looks like the free full text is available through PubMed Central, and there's the PDF. Right, so pretty seamless access through PubMed. It's not always going to be that seamless. If I go back here, sometimes you won't see this free full text, but you'll see this "Get It at Penn State" link. When you click on that, that's going to take, that's going to prompt us to get into the ILLiad service that I mentioned earlier. So I'm not going to actually go that route. But you'll see that "Get It at Penn State." And if it's not available full text, you want to train your eye to look for that. And you want to also be authenticated into our system, because that access will be seamless. There's a lot to learn in PubMed. A lot of the integrations are excellent as far as the resources that we have available. One of the things that I talk about when you do a search related, in any particular database, and I'll show you this a little bit more in our federated search later on in the hour, is that, think about what you're looking at. Think about the title, think about the abstract, think about the keywords or the subject headings, depending on what the database is offering, and consider the landscape of the literature is the terminology that I use. As far as we did a search for polio and preparedness, there's lots of language in that realm that relates to those two terms joined together as a search, and that's how you can refine your searching, by looking at these detailed records with a critical eye, and then kind of adjusting your search as you move forward. Okay, so I'm going to go back to our databases tab, to kind of give you a comparison. Google Scholar is actually embedded into my thing, so I'm going to do polio and preparedness. Okay, and probably the results would be somewhat similar to what we're seeing in Medline, but it would not be a match for match at all. In some cases, these are going to be open, openly available. In some cases, the browser is going to recognize that you're coming from a Penn State IP if you're authenticated, and there should be some fairly seamless access. You can see these links on the side.
Andrew, we have a quick question in the chat.
Yes.
By authentication, do you mean using like xyz13@psu.edu, like the password and the Duo approval?
That's correct. Yes. So when you log into to Microsoft, to the Outlook 365, right, and then your cell phone gets pinged for the dual security, then you'll be authenticated. So it's excellent to be authenticated into the system before you start library research, because things will be a little bit more seamless. I'm in my office, so I authenticated this morning and I'm still authenticated. But if I were to go home this evening and take my machine, I would need to re-authenticate at home if I were going to be working within library resources. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. Thanks.
Yeah, great. Again, so again, that's just kind of a comparison. We again going to be a little bit very different than Medline, but they're definitely complementary.
So Andrew.
Yes.
So could you go back to that for a moment quickly, Google Scholar? So
Certainly.
I guess just one of the things I would point out is some of those filtering features on the left-hand side that I use a whole lot, because you can really help your search by looking at more recent ones or relevance and such. So I'd really encourage people to look at that. And then also on the right-hand side, you can see what type of publication it is, whether it's HTML or PDF. And I think that's really important as well, because sometimes the HTMLs don't always come across very well.
And if there was no available link here and you were using Google Scholar, you would want to take the title or take the citation and go into one of our library databases and try to find that resource that way. And I'm going to show everyone our federated search and how to actually build a bibliography as we close out the hour. So okay, so back to the guide. I'm not going to get into any of the other databases at this point in time. I'm just going to point out some other tabs here, and then I want to show everyone the federated search and actually how to build a bibliography and really get started on a project. Although it's a little bit, and that's going to be a lit review, an academic lit review. But if I click on the government information tab, a number of resources through the CDC, HHS, FEMA, a pretty good list of federal government resources in this realm, and then also state and local government resources as well. I think this is an interesting one. Well, there's one that has a map, but this lots of great resources here. Is it the So let me see. Directory of local health departments. Maybe that's the one that has the nice interactive map. Yeah. So, you know, lots of great information here. And actually, I thought this was some interesting data to download this local health department COVID-19 directory. That would be some interesting map overlays, I would imagine, for someone to do a project on related to you know, COVID stats in those areas, right? So so government information. So gray lit. Does everyone know what gray lit is? Can anyone tell me what gray lit is? Gray literature. I give a definition on this page, so I've given it away. Lots of information in the realm of public health and public health preparedness and emergency management comes from government agencies, state and local agencies, agencies that or organizations that don't, you know, they publish outside of traditional commercial publishers, which is really kind of what makes gray literature. So dissertations, conference proceedings, clinical trial registries, and the list goes on. There's really an important, it's important to kind of understand that that there's going to be a lot of academic literature in the realm of public health preparedness, but there's also going to be a lot of gray literature as well. And it really kind of, you know, maybe gets to the point of the academic writing versus the technical writing, in that journals that you find in Medline or in traditional academic journals are going to, you know, that's going to be academic writing, and information that you find in gray literature is probably going to lend itself more to more technical writing, or at least in some cases. So I would encourage everyone to not overlook the gray literature. I think you probably are already in it, but maybe don't think about it in that way. But I've included a bunch of resources here on related, you know, what is gray literature, and then a number of resources that actually collect gray literature. And one resource that I'll show you at the bottom here is Policy Commons. This is actually a database that the library has just acquired. And Policy Commons actually is looking at IGOs and NGOs and all kinds of information that is either was on the web, static on the web, or still exists on the web, to try to collect it all in one area. And it's in the realm of public policy. But if we do a search here for public health preparedness and biological threats, I put both of those in quotes. And so, you know, what our list is here, there's 67 results. That's a fairly specific search, I think, in this database. But this first resource here, strengthening global systems to prevent and respond to high consequential biological threats. Results 2021 NTI. I'm not familiar with that particular organization. It looks like it's listed twice in the records. A working paper from the American Enterprise Institute, a World Bank Group, Sierra Leone COVID-19 Emergency Preparedness and Response Project. So you kind of get the idea. An EU document from 2018, financing vaccines for global health security, NBER. I don't know off the top of my head who that organization is, but you kind of get the picture of what Policy Commons is actually collecting. And this is really not been done before. And so I would encourage everyone to kind of use this as a resource. It's a great resource for gray literature. And again, this is kind of a broad search. I think, you know, if we did if we did a search for anthrax and threats, just to kind of broaden it. 1,961 results. And again, you know, just another example of kind of what you can mine in this particular database. So I'm going to go back to the gray lit tab, talk a little bit about the data resources tab, some FEMA data sets, HHS developer site for data. There's a Homeland Infrastructure foundational level data site. I would encourage everyone to explore these. There's all kinds of data out on the web. If anyone's after particular data, that's one of my specialties. Please feel free to reach out to me at any time, and I can assist you on that. And then the last tab, organizations. Again, not an exhaustive list, but a number of organizations that you can get to know that are in the that are at this intersection of public health, preparedness, emergency management. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go back to the library's main page, and I want to talk about our federated search. The library's the main search page from the library's page in this find box, it used to be branded Lion Search. I refer to it as a federated search. What it is it looks across a large swath of information that the libraries has access to. So those 700 databases that I mentioned, our federated search looks across a large spectrum of those 700 databases and actually returns results by type. And then what you can do with those results is you can actually quickly build a formatted bibliography and email it to yourself, so you actually have a nice foundation for a research project. It's not going to be an exhaustive list, and it may not include some of the gray literature resources that I talked about, but it's going to be a great start as far as an academic bibliography is concerned. So I'm going to do a search in the find box for preparedness and biological threats. And again, what this does is it looks across a large swath of the information that the libraries has access to. It's kind of our Google Scholar search for what we have access to. And then what it does is it lists resources by type. So it searches a large selection of journal databases to give us this list on the left. It searches our library catalog on the right, which, if you remember, I searched the same search in our library catalog, preparedness and biological threats, and we found 18, and we looked at all of those. So it actually queries our catalog at the same time. And then on the bottom left, it also queries our newspaper databases as well. And so oftentimes I talk about newspapers as excellent sources for leads on research. So we know someone's convening a hearing to examine biological threats to national security. That's fairly new, February 18, 2022. And then something on fiscal year 23 budget. But again, newspapers great for leads. What I want to focus on tonight is the journal articles. So if I click on these see all results, what that does is actually loads all of those 1,353 results into this nice list that we can examine. As Gene mentioned earlier, on the left-hand side of Google Scholar, there's lots of limiters that you can use. Our federated search actually has more limiters than Google Scholar, in that you can say limit to peer review or scholarly and peer review, or you can look quickly at those newspaper articles, or limit to government documents. You can do publication date limiters. We can come down here and say, I only want disciplines of public health or medicine. But I generally don't do discipline filters. One of the nice things that I like about the federated search, and so much of research that's happening is across the academic spectrum, is that our federated search, we're not in one database. We're looking at multiple databases. So we can see something from pharmacotherapy and also critical care clinics, sociological research online, right? It's kind of across the spectrum, and I think that's important in many cases. So I'm not going to actually do any of these limiters. I want to just kind of go through the exercise of looking at these resources and kind of considering what's how we might, and I'm going to show you how to build a bibliography, and also talk about how I learn the landscape of the literature and when I'm looking at these resources and looking at the that detailed records and then saving them. Quickly, if you want to, I always try to pay attention down here, articles available, PDF, so much of what we have access to is available instantly. If you want to look at the abstract, this interface changed a few months ago. You now have to click on this quick look. And what it does is it loads the abstract. It gives us the subject headings if we want to consider other additional terms. And it also provides us metrics down here, Web of Science and Scopus. What these metrics are is this article from 2018 from Pharmacotherapy has been cited 20 times since it was published. So if I click on this link to Web of Science, what that does is that loads all 20 articles that have actually cited the article that I'm looking at. And so that can be very valuable. Something that's been cited 20 times since 2018 is getting some traction in the academic literature. For the sake of the exercise of building a bibliography, I'm going to look at this abstract. I'm going to say, this is something I want on my list. I'm going to click on this blue ribbon here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this next button here. Intensive care unit preparedness during pandemics and other biological threats, from Critical Care Clinics Journal. It's been cited 27 times since 2019. I'm going to save that to my list. Hybrid threats and preparedness strategies, the reconceptualization of biological threats and boundaries, from a sociology journal. Consider the subject headings, consider what you learn in the abstract, and then consider how you might limit this terminology or hone down to be a little bit more specific. I'm doing this fairly quickly to show you how to build a bibliography, but when I'm at this level, at our federated search, I'm really trying to understand the landscape of what I'm finding and how that's going to help me find additional information. So here's something specific to telecommunications facilities. I'm going to tag that because I just want to build a quick list for you all to see. Detecting emerging infectious diseases, an overview of laboratory response network to biological threats. And so, okay, so let's do that. Now, let's say that I'm through this and I'm like, okay, emerging infectious diseases interests me. So what I want to do is I'm going to change my search altogether. Okay, so emerging infectious diseases has certainly broadened that because we got rid of preparedness. So let's add preparedness back. And that'll take us down. And so this is kind of, this has broadened it because emerging infectious disease is such a common, is widely studied. It's not uncommon to, that doesn't surprise me. But what this will do, it will remember the things that we've tagged. So you can see record number 3, we've already tagged. But we can tag, you could quickly tag these. In some cases, if I'm working with a student and we see the titles, you can just quickly tag them because you know instantly that they should go on a reading list. If you look up here, you can see that we've tagged 7 items. Let's say I tag a few more. Monoclonal antibodies, 2018, which that's actually, so that would actually be prior to their COVID use. So let's tag it just a couple more. You can see the Web of Science links. But if I go up here to this ribbon, what I've done is I've saved these items. And there's a number of things you can do here. Once we, you can see as shown, but what I want to do is say, I want this in APA style. And what it's going to do is it's going to actually format it for you in APA style, and then provide the link over on the right to the full text of the resource. And then what you can do is you can export it. If you're going to be doing a lot of academic research, collecting a lot of bibliographic resources, my recommendation would be to use Zotero. Zotero is a plugin for your browser that manages bibliographies. When I'm working with a student, in this particular case, what I do is I don't export it to anything. I actually just email it. And so I'm going to email this to myself. And I think maybe you heard that come in.
When you're typing, Andrew, we have another question in the chat. Will you consider adding Mendeley into the list in the future?
Our summon doesn't work with Mendeley, unfortunately. So I have to say no on that. But Zotero is very easy to learn. But I just dragged my my email into the screen, and you can see what this looks like in your inbox. Right. So again, so I like to use the federated search. I like to use the federated search. I like to use Google Scholar. You can dive down into Medline. Don't forget about the gray literature. Let me come back to my guide. Well, I'll show you how to get to the guide one more time. From the library's site, if you go to subject guides, social science and law. And I failed to mention there's a Homeland Security guide, which I'll drop into the chat, which is kind of a broader picture. And you can see Emily Reed from Harrisburg and myself are attached to this guide. So we would be the context for that. If I go back down in the P's for the subject guide is the public health preparedness guide. And again, any feedback on the guide, any resources, anything that's, again, it can't be comprehensive, but if there's anything that's, of any great resources that you'd like to share with the cohort or with, faculty, however you want to do it, please email me. Get in touch with Jennifer. This is a living document, and I'd like to improve it with each cohort as we move forward. So if there are any questions, we still have time for questions. Anyone wants to?
We do have one asking a little bit more about Zotero. Does it work with Chrome and Edge and most of the other popular browsers?
It does. And so I think one of the things that I failed to show everybody, what I missed earlier, is when I went down to the subject guides, there's a how-to guide section. And the how-to guide has some actually great things, which is maybe this is good to close out with the how-to guide. But like creating a concept map tutorial, that might be something that's really nicely in line with some technical writing. There's going to be, EndNote was one of those citation management tools that you can export with. There's all kinds of citation guides available here, research data management guides, data use agreement guides. There's a Mendeley guide, but unfortunately Mendeley does not talk with summon, so that's not going to work with the federated search. We have a guide on predatory publishing, and at the very bottom there is we've got text mining guides, and then there's a Zotero guide. And so what I'll do is I'll drop the Zotero guide into the chat. That's the most commonly used. That's the one that's, and again, this is going to be a, I'm not sure if it's Firefox, Safari, Chrome, and Edge.
It doesn't
Yeah.
matter what it is, how vague or how specific. You can make.
So, so yeah, that's, and so if we go back to the, oh yeah, so the how-to guides, again, so that's something that, that you want to consider as well. Any other questions?
So, Andrew, this has been great. So where's your guide for writing the papers for our students?
That's at the beginning of the public health preparedness guide. I have those resources for technical writing and academic writing that I've included. They're some of our best, most up-to-date online resources. And that's, you know, and they're all available online or through the library. They're electronically available. Some of them are open source. Some of them you might have to be authenticated to get access. But I wanted to put what I thought were the most up-to-date and best resources into everyone's hands for them to use as a manual, rather than trying to kind of take a how-to approach.
I also want to throw this out there. I have had to say this to a couple students in the past, but if we give you an article we want you to go look up, if you come across something that's a really good reference, I've had students ask me about whether they have to pay like $50, $60 just to access an article. As Andrew mentioned, our library and its resources are huge. If you're looking up something for one of our classes, we do not expect you to pay $60, $70 to look up one article. So use the library, talk to the librarians, interlibrary loan, all that kind of stuff. But please do not ever feel like that is the only option.
And one of the things that I mentioned earlier was the interlibrary loan and being authenticated and being seamless. And I was hoping to find an example of that, and I didn't. But I just did. And I work with the counterterrorism cohort of the Homeland Security program as well. So you can see some of my saved searches in the federated search related to terrorism and counterterrorism. But if you look at these records here, and again, this is about seamless access. Record number 1 is available PDF full text online. This record number 2 says citation online only from the Journal of Policing, Intelligence, and Counterterrorism. So if I click on this quick look, it's not real evident, but you can see this full details page because we only see the citation online. So if I click on this full details page, what it does is it loads, it sets me up to request it. And so at the very top right here, this request button, if you have an ILLiad account and you're authenticated into Penn State system, what it will do is auto-populate the request form for you, like it's done for me here, volume, page numbers, right? And I hit submit request, and I'll get a text message tomorrow or the next day and an email with that PDF of this article from 2019. Okay. Additionally, if you have something that you can't find, or you can't find the full text for, you can search for it. And I'm going to go back to the library's main page. This e-journals tab on the main page. If I click on Journal of Policing, Intelligence, and Counterterrorism, I'm not going to find it because we know that because it already prompted an interlibrary loan, right? But if I do Journal of Democracy, It's going to tell me that we own the Journal of Democracy and Project Muse from 1990 to the present. And it's also available 2003 to 1 year ago in ProQuest. So you would use the Project Muse link, and that would give you the full run of the Journal of Democracy. And so that's kind of a known journal title item. You would again go to the library's main page and use the eJournals tab. But again, any questions? All of the links that I thought were most important are in the chat. You can find access to me on the Homeland Security Guide or the Public Health Preparedness Guide. And if you have any questions as a follow-up to this evening, feel free to reach out to me or Jennifer, and she can pass it along to me.
I'm putting my
And maybe there are still some other questions. That's fine if there are. I'm going to stop my share though.
Email address in the chat. I'm not seeing any more questions in the chat. Does anybody have? I don't see any hands raised. Are there any last minute questions? Going once.
Yeah.
Going twice. I think we're good. We have a number of people saying thank you. So I will add to that. Thank you very much for putting this all together, and thank you for tonight, and also thank you for your continuing support. I know things like the guide that you put together and those resources that you're pulling for us are, that's not like a little time commitment. So I do appreciate everything that you do for us behind the scenes.
No problem at all. And again, it was interesting to see some of that that the disaster lit went away and got kind of folded in. But again, that's a living document. I haven't gone on a deep dive to kind of add resources in a little while for it, but I'm happy to do that. I'm happy to take suggestions on it. And one of the best things that the libraries has is the people resources, not only me, but all the other subject specialists and all of the people that work the Ask a Librarian service. So just make sure everyone utilizes us as a resource.
Sounds good. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And everybody else, we will, like I said, our next webinar is going to be the first Wednesday of October, which is October 5th. Always at 8:00 p.m. Eastern time. I think Bill had to log off, but he is going to be our speaker. He's another one of our PHS faculty, and he's got a lot of great, especially emergency management background. So I am really looking forward to hearing him talk. Hope to see you all there. If not before, at the September 20th IAEM meeting. So hope everybody has a great night.